afternoon. Welcome to our show. I'm Melissa Ridgen, and today we are putting the Indigenous economy in focus. Now, don't leave yet, because if economics aren't really for you, it's okay, because we're going to boil it all down and have a real talk conversation about it with some super smart experts, but they're also very down-to-earth First Nations folks. So, according to the futureeconomy.ca, the Indigenous economy in Canada is estimated to be around $32 billion, but its growth is outpacing the overall national economy. So that is obviously something to be excited about and incredibly proud of, and something that we should all be paying attention to because of the impact that it can have on our families and our communities. But also, let's be real, this country and its economy was built on exterminating Indigenous economies and then excluding First Nations from participating in that new colonized economy. But things are changing, right? How does Canada reconcile that history, and how do we participate in this colonized economy while holding true to our social and our cultural values? Don't forget, too, that the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People makes it very clear that Indigenous people have the right to, quote, their distinct political, legal, economic, social, and cultural institutions while retaining their right to participate fully, if they choose, in the political, economic, social, and cultural life of the state. So what does this all mean? What does it look like in real terms? There's a lot for us to discuss. We're looking down the road to 2022, what's new for this new year. And we're going to chat to later in the show with some of our favorite movers and shakers who are true to their values while making it big in the business world. It's a call-in show. If you have a question for any of our experts who I'm about to introduce you to, you can give us a shout toll-free 1-877-647-2786. So we're very fortunate to have, as I said, joining us today, three guests who are going to help us make sense of all of this economic stuff, bring us up to speed on where we're headed, what to look forward to. Don Madabi-Leach of the National Indigenous Economic Development Board, Philip Ducharme with the Canadian Council for Aboriginal Business, and Shannon Metawab. No, I'm going to mess it up again. We just had this conversation. Metawabin, right? Shannon? Metawabin. Okay.
Metawabin.
Of the National Aboriginal Capital Corporations Association.
Correct. Yep.
Perfect. Well, we're glad that you guys could all join us today. It's a new year. Well, a new year. It's a new year if you believe that the new year starts in January. Others will argue that it starts in the spring, but let's, for the sake of argument, say that it starts in January. I would be curious to hear, and we'll start, Shannon, we can start with you. Talk a little bit about the Indigenous economy, how it was for 2021 and what you're looking at for 2022, and kind of, it's an abstract concept, I guess, to some people, like, what is the Indigenous economy? What does it look like? Who are these people? If you could kind of just put it into perspective for us, and how things were in 2021 and how you anticipate things will be going in this new year.
I think we were all enjoying a little bit of momentum in the development of our economy. We have a number of institutions in Canada that we're all planning for Indigenous prosperity, and the pandemic sort of put a little wrench in it, put everything really at a standstill. We were lucky that we were able to obtain some support from the Government of Canada to support our existing businesses and protect that investment so that they can be ready for when this economy opens up again. But a $30 billion impact to the Canadian GDP. We should be making $100 billion impact. So we're still far off from where we need to be, but we're all working together to try to get there.
Yeah. Don, I'll ask you, was there anything that surprised you about 2021? Obviously, the COVID pandemic had affected everybody, but was there something that kind of surprised you in a good way with the Indigenous economy last year?
Yes, I think so. There's an estimated 60,000 Indigenous businesses in Canada, and I believe that because of their Indigenous DNA, many of them have been able to survive the hardships of the pandemic. Their creativity and resiliency helped them meet the challenges wave after wave during this pandemic. So in my everyday work, with Indigenous businesses, I've witnessed actual growth in some of the businesses during the pandemic, especially in businesses involved in transportation, construction, heavy equipment, accommodations, food production, home improvements, online arts and crafts sales, and recreational activity, as well as those providing medical, health, and counseling services. And our businesses are primarily struggling in the areas of tourism, restaurants, and some retail. Although our businesses are surviving, though, this doesn't mean that our businesses can sustain operations through ongoing waves of the pandemic and addressing supply chain issues or participate in economic recovery without additional help.
Yeah. Philip, I'll ask the same question to you. What stood out to you in 2021, and what are you excited about or concerned about, I guess, too, about the Indigenous economy for 2022?
Sure. First, let me start by saying thank you, Melissa. It's great to be here with you again. We were together a couple of years ago. So, you know what? 2021 stood out. I mean, we had the COVID, we had a lot of challenges, but 2021 was also an incredible year for Indigenous people. When you think of the economy, it's not just the businesses, but even in corporations, Indigenous leadership. For the first time, we had 2 national banks, 2 of our largest corporations, brought on Indigenous women as board of directors. That hasn't happened. We also had a national mobile provider bring an Indigenous person on as a board member. We've had Dr. Alika Tain, who is the president-elect of the Canadian Medical Association. And again, I think one of our biggest things of 2021, even though it's not really related to the economy, but it still instills pride in Indigenous people and helps us, and overall it will help the economy, is having our first Governor General being an Indigenous person. So I think 2021, for all the struggles, there was a lot of firsts. And I think we're going to build on that, and it's going to grow year after year after year. I mean, we're going to be seeing Dawn and Shannon on some of the boards, our president. And again, even yourself, Melissa, with APTN, 2021, I think was the first time APTN was invited to participate in the televised federal debate.
Yeah.
So again, we are getting the recognition. It was a very tragic year with the residential schools, but that brought Indigenous sort of thought to the forefront to a lot of corporations. And I think we're going to build on that. The Indigenous economy, there's a lot of successes that we can share. And I don't want to monopolize the conversation, so I will let it go on to the next question for the group.
And that was, that is actually one of my next questions about 2021. There was a little bit of an awakening among Canadians about their history. Because of the graves, not discovered, but confirmed, I guess, in the summer. So my question to each of you would be, now that there's that desire, there's a more understanding of the truth and a desire for reconciliation, what does that look like in terms of our economies? And so we can just go around. Dawn, I'll start with you, and we'll go around the group again.
Sure. Right now, I think the doors have been open for Indigenous organizations to collaborate and communities to collaborate more, and looking at developing our own institutions on our terms, to begin having a fulsome strategy developed by Indigenous organizations in Canada on economic recovery. I think that's really important for us. So the door has been open for us to do that as more people are understanding the truth about the real history of Canada. And so I feel that there's an openness, and we should definitely make sure we keep that door open to working with governments, institutions, corporate Canada, and our own communities. It's really important that we begin to take the leadership that Philip just spoke about, and become involved in helping to direct how to better include and engage Indigenous people and businesses in the Canadian economy.
Yeah. Shannon, same question to you. And I guess too, I would ask as well, I know that procurement, the federal government was saying, we need to be doing more to support Indigenous businesses. I think that they had a target of like 5% of their procurement would go to Indigenous businesses. I don't know if that's happening or not. Another thing is too, we had the head of the Bank of Canada on here on APTN National News just about a month ago. They're saying, the Bank of Canada now has reconciliation as one of its top priorities, which struck me as interesting. It's like, I didn't know that you paid any attention to, First Nations, Inuit, Métis. So I'm curious, Shannon, what's your take on all of this? In this time of reconciliation, I guess.
I think there's a big recognition that there remains large systemic barriers to providing equitable services and programs for Indigenous people. The Black Lives Matters movement really highlighted and put a spotlight on it. Yeah. We've been saying this for many years. We've seen declines in support for Indigenous services for many years, even though the total amount of service and cost has been going up. The narrative has been to demonstrate that an investment now reduces the long-term spend in the future, and by including Indigenous participation in the economy, everybody benefits. You've seen the decline in the resource sector because we're affirming our rights and title to the lands that are ours. 285 court cases support us, so communities are going to be expecting a lot more. In Canada, if they want to see prosperity, they have to include us.
Yeah, I love that. Philip, what's your thought on this time of reconciliation and how it's going to impact the Indigenous economy?
I'm a little conflicted with it. It was tragic that it had to take the discovery of those unmarked graves to bring it to the forefront. I mean, we've heard about this years as Indigenous people. We've known about this. One of the things that I want to hope to see happening is when these organizations and groups are coming out with these reconciliation action plans, is that they actually are measured and graded on what they're doing, and not just coming in and saying, we're going to do this, it's going to be a check mark. I was participating at an event earlier today, and a big corporation in Ontario has publicly stated what their plan is, what their targets are. I think all of that stuff has to be measured. And I think as it gets measured and Indigenous people are included in it, you're going to see the Indigenous economy, you're going to see our businesses grow. And again, we have, as Don mentioned earlier, we have businesses in every single sector, and we are growing. We are becoming prime vendors. We started smaller, we're becoming prime vendors. I mean, Indigenous people are doing incredible infrastructure development. If you look at Vancouver, there's that multi-billion-dollar project that's going to be taking place with the Squamish Nation. I believe there's 11 towers that are being produced. Montreal, the Northern Cree of Quebec, are doing a 26-story hotel, condo, commercial building. And then even in Winnipeg, you have that, I believe it's 109 acres that are going to be developed by Indigenous people. I mean, all that is growing our economy, and it's going to keep going on and on and on. It's exciting times, but we do have to make sure that people are held accountable when they come in, and not just come in and pretend they're big cheerleaders. They have to be held accountable to what they are saying they're going to be doing for our businesses and our people.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough too. It's tough to have a conversation a lot of times, I find, about our participation in the economy, because we still can look at our communities and see just abject poverty and all of those problems that have been in many of our First Nations for so long. Overcrowded housing. There's no cash for anything. There's no opportunities for anything. So when you talk about the economy, it seems to many of our people, it seems like this is just foreign, and it's something that doesn't have any effect on them. But I guess to you guys, with this, I mean, if this is sort of the beginning of it, and as it grows, there will be an effect that hits our communities. Is that what you're saying? Is that what we can hope?
I believe there is an effect, yes. And I mean, you see that as well, like some of these communities that are struggling, the first people that are coming through to help them out are fellow Indigenous communities that maybe have had a little bit more, and they can bring it. I mean, if you look at some of the northern communities here in Ontario that are affected with COVID, there was another group, I think they said it was a 3-hour snowmobile group that went up to help that community.
Yeah, Bearskin Lake.
As our communities grow and our businesses grow, we are helping ourselves. I mean, all research shows that Indigenous businesses hire Indigenous people. So, I mean, the more the opportunities that we get, it's going to help. And overall, it does help the full Canadian economy, because, I mean, there are always purchases that are made. When we get revenue coming in, we're going to be spending money. So I think it is there's some hope out there, and I think there's a reason for us to smile. There is so many struggles, but you know what? We're going to take care of ourselves. We can't depend on anyone else but ourselves. Resilient
is what our communities have been, definitely. Don, I'll ask you this question. Some people say participating in this country's economy, why would you do that? It's kind of, you're selling out. That sort of, there are those kind of grassroots people that believe that, right? And they're entitled to have that opinion, of course. But do Indigenous business people who are participating in this economy, do you find that it is still easy to hold true those, your culture, your social values, all those values, and yet participate in today's economy? Are we seeing that, Don?
Absolutely. I think that it's really important that people know that the history of Indigenous businesses giving back to the communities is very strong. When you often see it's the Indigenous businesses supporting the hockey teams, or the bursaries and communities now. They're really trying hard to support the next generation of Indigenous entrepreneurs who bring, I think, that Indigenous lens to the business that we do, so that we try to conduct business in a way that respects our cultural values and it respects the environment. It's not just hearsay. I see that every day in the work that I do with the Indigenous businesses. I work with over 3,000 Indigenous businesses, and I'm so proud of how much they give back and benefit the community in creating the jobs. I would really like to encourage that anyone watching here today, especially for the young people who are watching, that taking business programs in high schools, wherever you can, and post-secondary is so critical. We need to develop the next generation of entrepreneurs going forward. We're finding that, I know in this time when people are studying online, it's really difficult, but if people can fit some business studies, it really, to me, those are life skills when you take business programs. And so I'd like to encourage that, because we really do need more people in this sector.
And I wish I had I wish I had that advice. I would have taken it when I was younger. Shannon, I'm going to give the last word to you. We got to wrap up here and go to a commercial break, but I'll just give the final thoughts to you on reconciliation, the Indigenous economy, what's in store for 2022 and beyond.
You know, what's exciting about 2021 is that our network spends generally about 110 to 125 million in developmental lending annually between all the Aboriginal financial institutions. And we saw 125 to 130 spent last year. So there's lending is happening. Entrepreneurs are rallying around planning. We just launched for the first time ever a $150 million Indigenous Growth Fund that's going to be able to provide capital to our members so that they can in turn provide loans to entrepreneurs. So lending limits can go up, more innovative and larger businesses can happen. So the future is bright for our people. We're at the very cusp and beginning of our development. We're going to try to work on creating business support services, information, and support services that allow you to start your businesses. We're doing that right now so that you're ready. So
love it.
We need more entrepreneurs.
Well, thank you guys for joining us today. You know, it gives us some hope. We're still, knee deep in this pandemic. Everything kind of feels heavy and dragging us down, but you guys have given us something to look forward to, give us some light in this time of darkness. We thank you guys for joining us, and we appreciate what you do. And I can't wait to have you guys back on so we can talk about post-pandemic Indigenous economy. We need to take a break, but when we come back, we're sitting down with some incredible women who have made business boom for themselves. The entrepreneurs behind Sisters Sage and Satya. They're going to join us. Stay with us.
Join our conversation now. Call in toll free at 1-877-647-2786. Like us on Facebook on our APTN News page. Follow or tweet us at APTN InFocus. And send your thoughts to infocus@aptn.ca.
I think
you guys, thank you so much. That time flies, hey? I would extend that to all three of you. Please get in touch with us. If it's just an idea for something for, a broad discussion, a panel discussion, just a story to cover, something for APTN National News, or for our show here on InFocus, whatever. Just please keep me in the loop for this, because I love doing these stories.
Okay. Perfect.
You might be sorry you said that.
Oh, it's okay. Have a great afternoon, guys. Thank you.
Yeah,
Take
thanks.
care.
Yeah,
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Vancouver-based Sisters Sage is a wellness brand co-founded by sisters Lynn Marie and Melissa Ray Angus, who are Gitsala, Nizga, and Métis. They launched their business in 2018 with no background in this whatsoever. They learned and they grew and evolved on the fly. Theirs is an incredible story of inspiration. Here's a look back at a conversation that we had with Lynn Marie. Well, first of all, I love that the products that I've had. Beverly Andrews, who's a co-producer on this show with me, she introduced me to them probably close to a year ago, I would think. And that smudge spray, seriously, it does give you that fresh smudged feel after. You were in high-rise construction before starting this business during a pandemic. How does one go from building skyscrapers to making soaps and bath bombs? What's that process like for, in your head to get from that to this?
Yeah, it was like a total 180, totally different from what I was doing before to what I'm doing now. Working in construction was not for me. I was really experiencing sexism and racism, being overlooked for promotions for other men. I was crying all the time, and it really felt like I was in crisis, and I just had to get out of the trade or the industry. And so I collaborated with Melissa, my sister, and we came up with Sister Sage. And the funny thing is that I had never made soap before, but a ton of research and YouTube videos, here we are.
So from the time, you're getting to the point of fed up in your chosen career before, to the time of talking to your sister, we should get into business together, and then we should get into soaps. What's that sort of timeline on that?
Yeah, but we collaborated and we talked for quite a while trying to figure it out. I found a community entrepreneur program offered through the UBC Learning Exchange in downtown Vancouver. And so I signed up immediately, and they really helped me to, figure out what I wanted to do with Sister Sage. They taught me the basis of business and day-to-day life. And at the end of that program, I gave a pitch on Sister Sage and won $200. And so that was really the beginning of Sister Sage, and that was around September 2018.
Wait, and your sister Melissa, what's her background? Did anybody know how to make soap before this got going?
I know, so funny. So she had, she was in a bit of crisis as well. She found herself pregnant with her first child and facing homelessness. In Vancouver, there's a homelessness crisis, and she was part of it. And so this is why she wanted to, become her own boss and promote her own well-being. And so she was already interested in making bath bombs, and that's, it just kind of organically came together.
I think a lot of women thinking about going into business are scared to actually take that plunge, either thinking that you don't have enough money to get started, or what if your idea sucks and you're embarrassed and you fall flat on your face, or even just like a reluctance to leave that steady paycheck at a job that you might have to make that gamble on a startup. Can you share how you felt at the end of that diving board as you're looking off. You must have been thinking all of those same sort of things too. How did you convince yourself to take that plunge?
Yeah, it was really scary. I want to share like a quick story. When I was in construction, and this happened actually on Indigenous Peoples Day in 2019, I went to work, all proud with my beads and my braids. And one of the male coworkers had trapped me in a metal box, it's a lift, like an elevator lift that goes up and down the side of the building. So I got out of there and I never turned back. However, I was left with post-traumatic stress disorder and major depressive disorder. And so it took a lot of therapy to be considered recovered from this. And when I was offered my job back, and I said, no way, no thanks. And so I made the decision that day to just jump into Sister Sage full time and have this be my main source of income. And then, the pandemic was declared a few days later. And so it was a really scary and hard decision to make.
But you got through. I think that's kind of the message to women out there. I mean, you can be sort of at the bottom, feeling like you're at the bottom. And here you are, you're not at the bottom now. Is that something that you share with people? And I appreciate and thank you for sharing that story with us, with our viewers. And I'm sickened that you had to go through that. But what's to be learned from it? Like, if you can do it, do you kind of look at everybody and go, it can be tough, but you can do it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to share this story all the time because I want women and Indigenous women to know that they don't have to be stuck in their toxic work environments or even their toxic relationships, that there is a way out. It's a lot of hard work, but there's opportunity out there to become an entrepreneur. And so I do share, I have a growing platform on social media, and I share that platform with as many Indigenous women as I can. For instance, today I just launched for Mother's Day a matriarch box, and it's a collaboration with other Indigenous women creatives and aspiring entrepreneurs. Like, these earrings I have are made by Jamie Davis from Jada Creations. There's also, we're offering a meditation from Echo Alec from Sacred Matriarch, and another pair of beaded earrings by Audrey Medwaush from Wawate Beads. So I really, I seek to share my platform and promote other Indigenous women for their own success.
Well, and that's another thing. When you and I were talking, there's a difference between how many non-Indigenous people approach business, beating the competition, making the most money, those sort of goals versus how Indigenous women approach business. What have you found now that you are part of that Indigenous Women Business Network? What's it like in there?
It's such a great, loving community. And I feel it's really important to share this. I think as Indigenous people, we always want to take care of each other first. Make sure we're taking care of each other, of ourselves, and then care for each other. And so for Sister Sage, I really try not to subscribe to that capitalistic, colonial idea on, it's all about money and hoarding money. So that's why, I want to hoard community, and I want to share this success with others.
I love that. Such a big part of Sister Sage is raising others up. You don't see Indigenous women entrepreneurs as something to step on or to get ahead of. You see them as sisters. What advice would you have to your sisters who are sitting at home right now thinking about getting into business? Would there be a checklist that you would want them to go through in their heads before they make that move?
I think there's a ton of tips, but I think Sister Sage success has really been based on the community that I found. And it's really important to seek out those other women who can be mentors or who can inspire you or help you or amplify you or give you tips, or you can call at midnight because you're freaking out about something. Yeah. Because that's what I found. I'm a part of this community called the Indigenous Lift Collective, and we meet up every Sunday and Wednesday, and we gather in circle and we share our celebrations and tips tricks, and our failures as well, which are also celebrations.
Oh, absolutely. How many people do you guys employ now?
I have one full-time lady working here and one part-time, and myself.
And tell us about sort of the new products. What do you guys have? You mentioned the matriarch box for Mother's Day, which I love. I just saw that moments before coming in here, actually. What else? What's kind of next for you guys? Where are you taking the business next? How are you growing? You branching into something that we can expect on the horizon?
Oh, that's a hard question. I feel like we just moved workshop into this beautiful house here in East Vancouver, and so we're kind of expanding that way. Next steps are, website development, more marketing, more advertising, and ideally hiring more women. The idea of this space here is I'm creating a safe environment and a safe workplace for Indigenous women and BIPOC women to come and work. And so for me to be able to give back to the community in just that one way is really important.
Well, Lynn, thank you for taking the time to join us today, and we wish, from the bottoms of our heart, nothing but goodwill, good success for Sister Sage. We love your product here, and hopefully everybody who hasn't heard of you can check you out. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Sister Sage is up for 2 BC Small Business Awards, and we hope that they will win those, of course. Well, more and more public schools are offering programs that play to that fast-paced world of innovation and technology, and many of our youth are totally geared to that, right? Including here in Winnipeg, where we caught up with an instructor and some of his students to see the future from a very different perspective, one where they are their own inventors, their own bosses, making their own way in the world. Here's what's going on inside the award-winning MICE program.
We have 2 schools that contribute students to this program, and they are high school age, but essentially the program is they walk through all the steps of starting a business. And so that's everything from how to come up with a good idea, all the way to, who are you trying to maybe sell to, and then trying to, at the end of the year, launch your business.
So this is, it's not your regular business, obviously. You could do that in a regular old classroom, but this is not a regular old classroom, right? So what type of business are they thinking about getting into that you need to be in an environment like this? Yeah,
well, the great thing is, no matter what kind of idea you have, this is the program for you, especially, a young person trying to do something. It's amazing to have it here at North Forge Fabrication Lab, though, because there are so many amazing tools and resources and people that can help you build an actual physical product. So this place specializes in building physical prototypes of differing types of materials and that sort of thing. And so if you are looking to create something out of wood and sell it, you can definitely do it here. But we have students working on kind of technology solutions and app solutions and maybe fundraisers and events and stuff like that. So it doesn't matter what kind of idea you bring, but it's super cool to have it here with all these cool toys.
Is there kind of a new focus on invention and innovation starting at a younger age than previously?
Yeah, well, I think people are starting to realize the value of experiential learning and learning while doing. And I know these students have an amazing setup at their school where they do this regularly. And so this is just another opportunity for them to be able to be put in real life scenarios to try stuff and to learn stuff, and as a way of schooling, which I think that's something was kind of missing, especially I know when I was younger. So it's awesome to see that these opportunities exist now. But I think there could be more. There can always be more, because I think this is a really valuable way of learning and growing and kind of finding out what you want to do.
How long has this program been going on?
Quite a few years, probably it's in its 5th year. I've been doing this. This is my 2nd full year doing it. And I love it. It's tremendous.
Has there been any students that have kind of just blown your mind with ideas?
Totally.
Yeah.
I feel like there's new ideas coming every week in terms of just a thought here, a thought there, or they were looking into something and seeing kind of the passion and inspiration when the right idea kind of clicks.
Yeah.
And I think that's a common misconception is entrepreneurs or people who start businesses have like those light bulb moments of, you know, an idea comes out of nowhere. Yeah. But I think this process helps students realize that it's those moments come after learning a little bit more, researching a little bit more, trying stuff, failing a little bit, having a little bit of success. And then, you know, when you see that kind of click and that passion really lock in, that's like the moment where, you know, you're not concerned about them coming up with something because they're already off, like they're excited to go and run with it. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the moment that really makes it worth it for sure.
I'm very interested in like a really niche scene called the custom mechanical keyboard scene. And with that, it's a lot of custom things you need to do by yourself or with like a lot of machines. And actually coming here is like the perfect thing for me. So because they have a laser cutter and I'm able to use that to make cases and stuff. It's really nice.
What type of cases?
Keyboard cases. So like you put your keyboard inside of the case and then it like looks really nice and it makes like a bunch of different sounds and you can do a bunch of different things with it.
And do you have a prototype that you could show us?
I don't have a prototype physically yet, but I will soon. I just need to get the program ready so I can actually like start cutting it out and then putting it together.
I love it. Allie, why did you take this course? What are you working on here?
I'm interested in the fashion industry, so I am going to make sustainable clothing that is also attainable for kids like me.
Why did you want to take this program, and what do you see something as in your future?
Well, I'm interested in nail tech, and I've always had like a passion for nails. And coming here, I thought I could make my own business doing it because, yeah, I love doing nails. Being out in the public doesn't really satisfy me, so it would just be me, like one-on-one with doing nails.
Like making nails?
Yeah, like a salon.
Can't wait to see those kids and their businesses take off. Time for another break, but still ahead, more movers and shakers staying true to culture and tradition in today's economy. Stay with us. are talking about the Indigenous economy and another hugely successful Indigenous businesses headed up by a familiar face. Patrice Musso was host of APTN National News a decade ago, left journalism to become a mom, and then that led to a business idea that was born out of necessity, as many often are. Let's take a look at her journey and the interview I did with her last year about Satya.
I'm Patrice. I'm the owner-creator of Satya Organic Eczema Relief. I actually created this because my own daughter, Esme, got eczema when she was just 8 months old. In fact, it was so bad that she'd be scratching in the night and I'd go to pick her up out of her crib and there'd be blood on her crib sheets. So of course I took her into the doctor, and the doctor's only option to me was steroid creams. And to me as a mother and as a journalist, that wasn't any option at all. So I started researching. I looked at the existing medical research, I looked at academic studies, I looked at traditional medicine, and I created something in my crock pot in my kitchen that cleared my daughter's eczema up in just 2 days. So then I had a whole crock pot left over and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. So I put it out to other moms out there who needed some of this. Turns out everybody did. And so Satya Organic as a business was born.
That makes me so proud when I watch that video. So Patrice, we actually started here at APTN the same day. At that point 10 years ago, did you ever think Patrice Musso's broadcast career was going to take her down the path of being a businesswoman?
Never, never. I mean, I got into doing broadcasting and reporting because I really wanted to try and make change in the world. After a point, my priorities changed. I had a baby, and then I founded Satya, and I found out that business can actually be a way to do that. It can really be a vehicle for social change.
Well, and you didn't have, this business background. We were talking about, I think some people maybe sitting at home think, well, I could never get into business myself. I don't have a business degree. I've not taken any of those types of courses. I don't have an MBA. Were those thoughts that went through your mind at the time?
Am I good enough? Am I qualified? Right. Mm-hmm. And I mean, honestly, for me as a business owner, I'm actually very hesitant to hire someone who has an MBA because they just don't. Having an MBA is different than being an entrepreneur. And you have an MBA, you're very good at something specifically, usually in a large company. Mm-hmm. Being an entrepreneur is about problem solving and grit. And we have that in, especially like moms, we have that in abundance.
This started in a crock pot in your kitchen. And I remember when you moved to Vancouver, and then it grew to you selling this product at farmers markets. And I was like, this is just beyond cool. And then next thing you know, there's Dragon's Den. And then next thing you know, you're a CEO. Your product is sold all over the place. I have trouble getting my head around, this is my friend who I watched this business grow from the ground. What goes through your head as you sit now, looking back over that, how it went, and kind of what were the growth milestones that stand out for you, and how did you know where you were going to kind of go next from there? Sorry, that was 500 questions in one.
No. I remember very specifically the day that I did my first farmers market. It was awesome. I sold $110, and it was fantastic. It was like people were buying my stuff. Yeah. Now, as you mentioned, we're in about 900 stores across Canada, and we're actually, and this is probably, I can make this announcement now, we're just launching in Kroger in the US, which is giant. They reach 1 of every 2 Americans. So it's going to be a big step up for us. Plus, we just also were in Indigo and HBC as well. So that just launched a couple weeks ago. So we're really growing a lot. It's an evolution of the business. It's different from when I started at day one versus, what I'm doing today. Your skill sets evolve. You just learn on the job, kind of. You don't have to have everything figured out at the get-go. And also to not beat yourself up for not having every skill. I can barely add, honestly. I'm so bad at the spreadsheets and the, cost analysis, all that kind of stuff. I'm good at other things. You don't have to be good at everything. You just go and do what you want to do and find people to help you.
Well, and how many people has this grown into? How many people do you have working with you now? You're obviously not fulfilling all of these orders out of a crock pot in your kitchen now. What does Satya look like now in terms of like the bricks and mortar of it and the machinery behind it?
Yeah. Well, I didn't, as you mentioned, I didn't have a business background. So when I grew my business, I could really create it the way that I wanted to. And what I wanted to do was actually employ people who are stay-at-home moms or caregivers of elderly parents or whatever. So we wanted to pay people at a living wage, which we do, and allow them to work on their own time. So we're very task-based, not hours-based. And honestly, people who cannot work in the usual 9 to 5 time frame usually are really good at getting stuff done very quickly because they have to. So that's been great. We've had all of those are the people that are employed inside Satya. And when the pandemic hit, of course, we were already all working from home, and we had built our community before it hit. So once COVID came, we were actually really well placed to move forward. And that was important because, of course, we ended up getting busier because everyone was washing their hands and wearing masks. So your skin was in deep trouble. So we've actually donated now to 3 hospitals and 3 extended care facilities as well, just because the frontline workers are really using the product now a lot. In fact, I always tell the story of this nurse who emailed me, and her hands were so bad that she was actually crazy gluing them together so she wouldn't bleed on patients, basically. But since using Satya, her hands are back to normal, and her fingerprints have started to grow back, so she can use the biometrics again. So yeah, it's been pretty amazing to see how we're having that kind of impact with people.
You had said you didn't come from a business degree. It's not your jam necessarily. You learn as you go along. Something else you had mentioned to me that I think is really worth noting is, to women watching at home who think that they have an idea and they've got a lot of those conversations in their head that it's preventing them to take that plunge, to make that step, to make their dream a reality. You'd said there's a lot of danger in keeping these things to yourself. Explain that.
Well, being an entrepreneur is incredibly lonely and isolating because quite often the people in your immediate family or life, unless they've actually run a business themselves, they don't quite understand what you're going through. Mm-hmm. So when you're interested in starting your own business, the most important thing you can do is find your community. And that would be other female entrepreneurs, I guess male entrepreneurs as well, but I'm really focused on female entrepreneurship right now, because they're the ones who are going to support you and share with you the experience that you're about to move through. And that's key. I wouldn't be here without my community. Well,
where do you even start? And Lynn, who we talked to from Sister Sage before you, she kind of said the same thing. And I feel like, you think of that and you want to reach out and you want to get that kind of network around you, but even that could be daunting. It's like, well, where do I begin with that? Right? What was your first step?
My first step was it was interesting. I found a friend of mine needed someone to interview someone else for a podcast for her. And I ended up meeting this woman, Madeline, and we just ended up hitting it off. I interviewed her. She was like, you need to come to SVI Women, which was a social venture institute. And I saw all these women having businesses that were full of integrity and values, just really sticking to what was true for them. But they were also very successful in what they were doing. And I thought, if that's actually what business is, because my perception of business was always about profit and, kind of sticking it to the little guy and very male dominated. And it just was never something that I thought I could ever do. But then I went out and I saw all these other people doing things that I could get behind. And I thought, yeah, I can do that too. And that's how when I started my business. It wasn't when I created my Satya Bomb. It was almost a year later when I got inspired by seeing all these other women doing good things in the world.
Well, we are inspired by you, and I hope some of the people at home are looking, going like, this is, I was wondering what happened to Patrice, and now that I've seen her face, her beautiful face, and they know what you're up to, and I hope that there's some people who take inspiration from your journey and can make their own business dreams a reality too. And congratulations on, you know, the expansion to the States, to Kroger. This is incredible. Love you, and thanks for coming on.
Love you too, my friend. Thank you.
Well, we can't talk about the Indigenous economy without talking about our artists. Anishinaabe artist Patrick Hunter spoke recently with Daryl Stranger about expanding his business. Here's that conversation.
Marc-Andre Fleury, the new goalie for the Chicago Blackhawks, debuted a new goalie mask designed by Ojibwe artist Patrick Hunter. Patrick joins us now to talk about the mask. Patrick, first off, the mask design and artwork it's beautiful. How did all of this come about?
They messaged me through Instagram, of all places, and initially they wanted some designs for their first ever land acknowledgement that they play in their arena before every home game, and then kind of called me again later in September and asked if I would be interested in doing the goalie mask for Marc-Andre Fleury, and the answer was yes, and that's kind of how it kind of really got started.
So can you walk us through the design of the mask a little bit? What inspired this design?
Well, having done the artwork already for their land acknowledgement, I pulled a lot of that imagery from the land acknowledgement to the mask, just to have some, so there's more context. So they've seen the artwork for the land acknowledgement before, now it's on the helmet. And I just tried to treat it as a teaching moment so that those two things can tie together. And yeah, the 7 feathers that are on the helmet represent the 7 grandfather teachings, and also the florals on it. His last name just happens to be Fleury. And, florals were something that were traded and put onto apparel that we had traded around the Great Lakes. So it was kind of a little piece of iconography that I think everyone can relate to.
So what was your reaction when you saw it on the ice for the first time?
I'm still kind of coming down from that. My cheeks almost want to burst because I can't stop smiling about it, but it was insane. I'm still kind of getting a lot of love on social media about it. And, what a great opportunity for the Blackhawks to kind of try and change the narrative around the logo to here's how we can kind of do reconciliation the right way.
Mm-hmm. Now our show today is all about inventors and entrepreneurs, so I want to switch gears just a tiny bit here. Now you recently won the Entrepreneur Spirit Award at the Indigenous Entrepreneurship Awards. What did that mean to you to win that?
Thanks for bringing that up. I with everything that's going on with the mask, I was like, oh yeah, that happened. It just kind of goes to show me that there's people watching and the work that I'm doing has impact. And, when you're in the job every day, kind of working at the table behind me, you forget sometimes that, a lot of people are watching, and it feels really good to know that there's folks out there that the work resonates with.
So who inspires you in your life? Who kind of inspired you to take on the journey that you're currently on?
When you kind of become more known in Indigenous country, you kind of tend to meet everyone and kind of get to know everyone. But Jen from Cheekbone Beauty, she's a real inspiration. She's a lot of fun. And my friend Kanya Dio Horn, the actress from Mohawk Girls, and also Letterkenny. A lot of women, I think, really inspire me to kind of keep going on. And my mother, of course, and I don't know, there's too many to name.
So what advice do you have for other young artists and entrepreneurs looking to make their way in this world right now?
Sure. I made a mistake earlier on in my career, and I wasn't really real with who I was as a person. I'm a Two-Spirit Ojibwe man. That's what is infused in a lot of the work. And in the beginning, I kind of tried to hide that a lot. So I think if you really lean into who you are as a person, and then two, your culture, wherever you come from, your background, that can totally be an asset to your success. And that's something that I hope that I can get across to you guys today.
So what's up next for you, Patrick? Is there any big projects that you're able to share with us that you're working on right now?
Oh gosh, not that I'm really allowed to talk about, but fingers crossed that we'll chat again soon. But I don't even know how you top, doing a mask for Marc-Andre Fleury. So I don't know yet. Hopefully I can take some time off and just chill and be with family.
And going back to the mask one last time here, what's your favorite part of the mask and the whole design process?
I mean, it doesn't necessarily look the way that a lot of hockey masks look. This is my first one, so I really didn't kind of have a lot to go on there, but I hope that it was original enough that people would, love it, and that seems to be the case so far. But yeah, I love the colors on it, and the fact that it's worn on such a national stage and a beloved stage as the NHL is. That means a lot to me.
And should anybody want to reach out to you for maybe a design of their own, or just to say hi, where can they do that?
Call me. No, I'm just kidding. PatrickHunter_art on Instagram is kind of the easiest place to do it. It's like the new business card these days. Or PatrickHunter.ca. You can find what I'm up to on there.
All right. Well, Patrick, I want to thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to speak with us. And again, that design is just incredible, and it looks great on the ice. Everything about it is just top notch.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for the chat. It was awesome.
Fun fact, this past weekend, Marc-Andre Fleury became the first goalie in NHL history to beat all 32 NHL franchises, all while wearing that beautiful mask. Congratulations to him, of course. Well, that is a wrap on today's look at Indigenomics. Thank you so much for joining us. We love chatting with you about these things, and we're going to see you back here next week. Bye.